Creating a wrap cover is a great way to elevate your bind by having an image cover both the front and the back of your bind. Hello, and welcome to Binding Bites. Today, I'm going to show you how to create a wrap cover template in Affinity Publisher. Once you have the template created, you'll be able to create wrap covers a lot easier because you'll know the boundaries of which your image has to stretch, and it'll be a good starting point for future designs. You want to start in Affinity and create a new blank file, and you want your page setup to be the size that you're going to be printing on. I'm in the US, so I print on 11 by 17, which is 43.18 by 27.94 centimeters. You want to make sure that it's horizontal and it's set to just a single page instead of a spread. I'm going to walk you through a template using the sizes that I make my books at. Obviously, for the front and back and your spacers, you're going to want to use the dimensions that you use for your binds. One thing I noticed once I started binding more frequently was that I kind of ended up settling on a specific size. So my books are always 22 centimeters tall, for example, because just when I trim my pages, they always end up with that as the height. And my width is typically 13.8 centimeters, and I use a 1.2 centimeter spacer. So it's just something to keep in mind that you're going to want to adjust this template based on your specific sizes once you get kind of into the flow of things. So we're going to start with a blank page, and I'm going to just go over to the rectangle tool, and I'm going to make sure that its fill set is to 0 and the stroke is just black, and I want a solid line with 0.5, and I want to make sure that it's to the inside and it's a butt cap. And I'm just going to start with drawing a rectangle, and I'm going to go down over to the transform to make sure I get the exact measurements. If you don't have this, you can go to Windows and check it so that the panel will appear. I'm going to just go into these dimensions, and since my height is going to be 22 centimeters, I'm just going to type in 22, and my width for a spine, the spine will change. So I'm just going to start with a 2 centimeter spine, knowing that I'm going to be adjusting this for each specific book based on the book's measurements. But this gives me a starting point. So I'm going to drag and drop this so that it is in the center of my page. And then I'm just going to do a quick copy and paste and pull it over to the side. And I'm going to start adjusting for the rest of the dimensions. So next I'm going to go again back to the transform corner, and I'm going to go 1.2 because that is my spacer. That's the size that I use. Then I'm going to, just holding Control, I'm going to click and drag it to the other side of the spine. And now I have a spine and 2 spacers. But you notice in the rectangle, in the layers tool, it starts getting, it just says rectangle over and over again. And so I'm going to just make sure I'm renaming them by double clicking the layer and typing in spine, spacer right, spacer left, and that way I can keep track of things as I move on. So I'm just going to take spacer right, I'm going to copy and paste it, I'm going to drag it over, and this time I'm going to go down to the width, and I'm going to type in 13.8 because that's the width that I do for my front. Change it to front, and just reorder it so it keeps it clean. And then I'm going to copy and paste this and drag it all the way to the back and rename it as back. So pretty quickly, I now have a base cover template where I know I have a spine, my spacers, and the front and back. When you're printing, at least for me, I want to make sure I have a bleed because when you wrap the paper or the canvas around your board, you obviously have the lip, the edge of the bookboard, as well as a portion of the book cloth that shows on the outside of the end papers. So you need basically a border. So I'm going to again just take this and I'm going to copy and paste it. But this time I'm going to just adjust the width to 2 centimeters. You can adjust this based on your own bleed. I typically try to do mine the width of a ruler because that's what I trim. But as long as you have it enough to cover the thickness of your board and your edge, that should be all you need. But I'm going to just adjust this with, and I'm going to call it the bleed. Call it margin or whatever helps you think of it. I'm again copying and pasting it to either side. And then I'm going to copy it one more time, and I'm going to go up here to rotate clockwise. I'm going to just rotate it and stretch it into here as well. And again, copy and paste that on the bottom. And now I have 4 bleeds and essentially the edge. This gets you the bare bones. And now whenever you have a space, you start fresh with a new template and you want to do a new wrap design, you can go into here and you can just take the spine and then you adjust it based on, okay, this is a thicker book, it's actually 2.5. And then you have to adjust and move all of your other boxes basically. But it's a little bit tedious, but honestly, just having to do this once for a new project is actually not that bad compared to starting from scratch every single time and redrawing all my boxes to make sure the size is correct. This way I can just quickly adjust and drag and drop. One thing I also have is right here is the fold for the image turns. Depending on how crispy you like your hinges, one thing to note when doing a wrap cover is the paper or the canvas that you utilize will wrap around the front and back book cloth, or bookboard, I mean. And it'll basically take up the width of your bookboard right along this very edge. So this portion of the image will essentially be turned down and you might lose what is on that image. So if you want to include that kind of a line, just to kind of give yourself an idea of what you might lose in that spot so you don't put anything really important or vital because that's where it's being folded, you can just again take one of these rectangles, copy and paste it, and make the width the thickness of your boards. So if you have 0.25 centimeter boards, you can just put that in and then drag that into position. And once again, now you have a little bit of more knowledge. You can kind of see that space. This is the bare bones of how you can get this image, and you can use this template over and over again. One of the things that I like to add is shown on this one, which is these upper corner L shapes. And to do that, again, you're just drawing a rectangle and you're making it white, and then you're aligning it on this point to the very corners of your bookboard lines on both the top and bottom. And you're giving it a bit of a gap here in the corner because this is going to be, you're going to actually cut this like on a diagonal like that and fold it. And so you don't want to put this right up against the edge right here because then you're going to have a white spot in the corner. So you want to leave it so that way when you do slice it, you have solid color of your design all the way on that corner wrap. But the reason why I add this is because I struggled for a really long time printing out a canvas and then lining up my bookboards correctly on the back, right? And so then I ended up getting it off and my spine wouldn't be centered and other stuff like that was really annoying. And so I ended up buying a light board, and that allowed me to handle these corners a lot better because I could see through the design on the other page. So let's see how this would be applied. So here I have an image in the background and it's kind of set to my design. So you can kind of see here the borders are visible, and you can change this to whatever color you like to kind of see how it looks. So if I'm going in here and I want to make this into a cover, I can now see that this is where the front is, this is the fold, this is the spacer or the hinge, and the spine. And I can go in and I can add my artistic text, add my titles, throw that onto the spine, whatever I want to do. And I know now I can size things appropriately because I have an idea of the spacing. But one of the things this is the reason why I do the corners, is when you're looking at it from the other side. So I turn off the borders, so don't print it with your lines visible. That's just so that you can kind of see it when you actually start adding your image and graphics to it. You want to make sure that layer is turned off before you export it. And once you export it, you have an 11 by 17 or whatever your size paper is, and you can print it to your printer of choice. Once you have it printed out, I bring it over to my light box or a light source and I turn it upside down, and you end up with something that looks like this without these marks. You can kind of see through it and you can see the design. And this is where the corners come into play, because now I can take a ruler and a pencil and I can mark on the back with these lines, because I can see the actual mark. It's not just a big rectangle. I'm not guessing where the spine is. And once I know that, I now know I have my book board. I have my book board cut. I can now see those lines on the back, and I know it's going to go right there, and I know it's going to go right there. And then I can put my spacers in, and I can put my spine in, and that's how I get things dead center. So it does look a little funny because you're basically printing it out with these like weird corners. However, it's the best method that I have personally found that allows me to mark on the back and get them correctly centered on the page, get the book board centered. I have tried in the past to print my template on the back, where I will print this out on the front side, and then I feed it back into my printer with these lines, and I try to print that on the back. But I struggle with my printer. She's a temperamental beast, but I love her. Unfortunately, they ended up being off. So I would print it, and then it would be off by just like a centimeter in either direction or a millimeter, and it would not allow me to properly align the book board, which was really frustrating. So I just put these little corners in, and I'm good to go. And that way I can print it, and I can see through the paper or the canvas, and I can print more appropriately. Another option, instead of doing these corner cutouts, is to just do lines instead. Most likely you're going to be printing on something that is larger than your wrap cover, which means you have some blank space that you can do these lines on, and then you can see those through your light board and draw the pencil marks in order to properly place your spine in book boards. It will depend on the thickness and color of your material with how easily you can see these lines, so just experiment and see what works best for you. So that's how you make a template. It's not that difficult. You're basically just making sure you need to know your measurements of what your front and back and your spine and your spacers that you're going to use, and that allows you to create the template, and then you can just use it and import in your image and design your cover. And it's a lot easier that way. So hopefully this helped and you were able to learn things, how to make a template. And if you want, you can access this on our resources drive that is available and linked in the description. So if you want to just take mine, you're welcome to use it. Otherwise, thank you for watching, and like and subscribe.